Hello, hello. Thanks for tuning in. On this episode, I am joined by Devin Miller. He is the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law. Now, here are some talking points that he really wanted me to include. He's very proud of A, father of 4. B, married 13 years, which that's very commendable. He has 4 degrees, an electrical engineering degree, a degree in Mandarin Chinese, an MBA, and a law degree. So this guy knows a lot. He's got quite a diverse background. I'm super excited to have him on the show. We're going to be talking really about all things legal, trademark, patent, business formation, stuff that creative business owners, unfortunately, don't think enough about when they get started. So if you want to learn more about him, you can go to lawwithmiller.com or strategymeeting.com, and you'll learn a lot more about those things on this episode of Tripod.
You're listening to Tripod, a podcast produced by Tricycle Creative to help safely navigate creative business owners through the worlds of digital marketing, strategic content creation, and business growth. Host Ross Erosion is a marketing consultant, content creator, and entrepreneur who brings you helpful tips, social media updates, inspiring interviews, and his own unique perspective on how to tell your story and grow your business. So if you're interested in being a better marketer, business owner, or creator, sit back, relax, and let's get pedaling.
So, I've started something new this year in 2021. It's really boring. Do you want to hear what it is?
I absolutely want to know what you're doing this boring. There's nothing more exciting than boring things.
Everyone with their resolutions, with exciting crazy goals. I've started drinking from a straw. And I got to tell you, it's a whole different hydration experience, So maybe that's to setting achievable goals. Probably too low. Drinking?
Well, at least with the low, when you set it low enough, you're likely to attain it, and you feel good about yourself. So maybe it's a good thing. Maybe this year you set the goal so low that you can't fail, and the next year you can set an actually worthwhile goal.
I think it's less of a goal and more of like an illumination. Because because my wife got me this new cup, because I'm always complaining about the cup I drink. If I don't, whatever, complaining about something. And it has a straw, and I never drink from a straw. And listen, if you're out there not drinking from a straw, maybe this is the only takeaway. Probably not, because this is going to be a pretty jam-packed, awesome episode. It's a good takeaway. So give it a try. It's reusable also. I don't want to be wasteful. I hate waste. So it's a plastic reusable straw. Welcome to Tripod. We're not just talking about straws today. In fact, I'm joined by someone who knows a lot of stuff about definitely more than just straws. Devin, say ahoy.
Ahoy. And, I don't know if you know this, but ahoy was what the person that originally invented the telephone, what they wanted people to say instead of hello. And it wasn't until some of the battles that went back and forth for dominancy that we actually say hello instead of ahoy.
Man, can you think about what a different world it would be if we used ahoy instead of hello? I think it'd be a more fun world.
I think so. I think we should all just start saying ahoy, because Alexander Graham Bell, person that came up with the telephone, that's the one that he wanted us to use ahoy. So out of a tribute to him, I appreciate you saying ahoy instead of hello.
The OG phone creator wanted you to say ahoy. So if you start using it again, give us a shout out. Let me know at Hello Tricycle on the socials. Wow, we've already talked about the weirdest of things, and we have so much more to get into. I'm super excited because I'm talking to a lawyer, and I'm not in legal trouble that I know of. And wait, you're not serving me. This wasn't a big ruse to serve me with papers, was it?
That would be a creative way to serve someone. I don't know if you can serve them over a podcast, but it would be a creative way to get to catch someone. So no, not as far as I know. I'm not serving you, and I don't know of any legal trouble you're in. And that's a compliment in and of itself that you're excited to talk to an attorney for any reason, because most of the time people say, oh, that just sounds boring. So I'm glad that you're excited.
Devin, I mean, here's the thing, right? Like as myself as an entrepreneur, very early on, I recognized and appreciated the areas of my business that I don't know crap about, that I don't know nothing about, and that I need to hand off to the subject matter experts. One of them was taxes. The other one was legal, right? Those are just dangerous waters to swim in if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm with you, and especially on the taxes. I looked and said, I don't really want to have to figure out taxes and payroll and what I do, so I'm going to hand that one off. So I do a lot of my own legal, but I'm right there with you on the taxes.
So I want to ask you something. A lot of my listeners, they are creative business owners. Why do you think that creative business owners don't talk to lawyers?
I think that business owners in general, and I'm as guilty as an expert, and think that they are the smartest person in the room and that they can figure out anything and get anything done. And if you didn't, you wouldn't be a business owner. You wouldn't actually try to start your own business. And so a lot of it, I think, comes from, hey, rather than go pay someone else to do this, I can probably figure it out. I've got a lot of experience. I'm a smart person, and so I'll just do it myself. And so sometimes that works out well. Typically, when you get into the more complicated things, as you mentioned, taxes, if you get into, bookkeeping and legal and some of those other things, the things that you don't know are oftentimes a killer. You don't know about, what the deadlines are, what the mistakes are you made. You don't do that. And so it's kind of that, I think I know what I'm doing, therefore I'll save myself the money or I can do it better than anybody else. And it can get you into kind of that trouble sometimes.
I think it's also this thing where it's weirdly encoded in the DNA of an entrepreneur or a small business owner that I'm going to try to figure this out, right? If you don't have that kind of drive to do that, I think it's going to be hard to be a business owner, a small business owner, an entrepreneur. But I think you do need to, again, set the limits. Okay. For example, I go through and I take a look at my books, right? I use QuickBooks Online. I go through it, look at all my transactions. I can do some aspects of my bookkeeping. Make sure, okay, I'm going to put this in this category. I know what this is, that kind of thing. I'm eyeballing it. But I have a bookkeeper who comes through after me, right? And fixes things where I've made mistakes or double checks my work. And I think that's so much, maybe even arguably the most important when we're talking about law and aspects of the legal when it comes to being a small business owner.
Yeah, no, and I agree. Give you an example because I'm right there with you. So if we were to not dive in too deep on patents and trademarks, one of the rules that you have with patents is if you put something out to the public you have a 12-month timeline within which you can pursue a patent. And if you don't pursue it, you're donating it to the public. It becomes what's called public domain. And the worst thing is that people, they say, hey, I can do this myself. I'll get to it when when we have the funding or when I have the time. And so a lot of times I've had several people that are potential clients because I couldn't help them. They'll walk in and say, okay, we've been in business for a few years and we've been selling this. We've decided we probably should get a patent now. And I'm thinking, and I usually will be nice and say, yeah, that's great. It's good that you have a good business. It's exciting that it's doing well. I can't help you because we're not able to pursue a patent. So I wish you the best. Good luck competing. And next time you can create something or invent something, I'm definitely here to help. So that's kind of one of those things where most people, you wouldn't know that you have 12 months after you put it out in the public within which you have to pursue it. And so it can bite you in the butt. And yet it's one that's an easy mistake to think because, hey, I can do this or figure this out, or I'll get to it when I can.
Do you get that a lot also? I deal with it a lot in the marketing space where it's like, they have turnover and someone else may have started it. It gets lost in the mix. And then it's, that person who started it is no longer with the company. And then even if there were to be these, emails or notifications that get sent, they're just going into the ether, right? People aren't even aware that that's happening.
Yeah. I mean, it's one where as a startup, most of the time you're just you have an idea, you're focused, and you should be focused on getting something created, getting something done. And for the first year or two, you're just trying to survive and, build a business. It's not like what you see on Shark Tank or other shows or everything where I have an idea and 2 months later, I have a multi-million-dollar business that's growing. 95 or 99% of the businesses aren't that way. And so first year or two, you're just trying to survive and prove out the idea. And so you don't keep those records, which, and I'm probably, even as an attorney, don't keep as good a records as I could on sometimes, but you just don't keep track of it. You don't keep the records. You're worried about putting out the fires, getting the things going. And so then to your point, it's kind of years down the road, you're trying to circle back to the things that you always put aside. And by that time, it's 20 times harder because if you can even find the records or find who did what and how it got started and what happened, half the time the inventors are gone or the original founders are gone or it's evolved and everything else. So absolutely, it can be a mess that takes a lot more time and money and effort to sort through than if you've done it from the beginning and just had that strategy.
I'm going to give you a really loaded question, right? But what fun would a conversation be if I didn't toss a lawyer some loaded questions, right? Creative business owners, or for that matter, business owners, if they have to start with one thing, right? Patent, trademark, copyright, maybe even business formation. Where do they start? And I know that's an incredibly loaded question. So go ahead and answer it very simply.
It is a very loaded question. I would back up and say, first of all, before you do any of that, figure out if your idea has actually been done. I mean, it shocks me how many people will come into my office and say, I've got a great idea and it's so exciting. And I said, usually that does sound like a really good idea. Have you happened by chance just looked on Amazon or Googled it to see if anybody's done it? Like, no, I don't think anybody's done it. And I'll say, well, let's just check.
I don't think anyone's done it. Like, I mean, what are you doing?
So that would be the first sniff test is, take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, see if anybody else has done it. If it's already been, if it's been a bomb and not successful, that's where I'd start. Now, that wasn't your question, so I will jump to your question. Let's say you've done that, and you're really saying, okay, I think that it hasn't been done, or here's how I'm going to do it better or different, and I'm going to make a business around it. First thing I would do is form a business. LLC is typically the easiest one. S Corp or C Corp, those ones are usually down the road, a little bit more complicated. So unless you have specific tax reasons or other investor reasons, go with an LLC. The reason I say that is because LLCs are really set up in any business, but LLCs, to limit your liability. And that's why it's called a limited liability company or corporation.
Smart that they called it that.
Go figure. But, so what happens is, a lot of times people will get excited about an idea. They'll say, oh, I've got a great business idea. And they go out, start the business as just a sole proprietorship or as a partnership. And then, a year or two down the road, they'll get a letter in the mail, or maybe it's on a podcast if somebody's serving you on a podcast. But, it will say, you have done X and X and X wrong, and now we require you to cease and desist, or we're going to sue you. Or even worse, they just get the lawsuit served to them, and they don't even get the cease and desist. And if you don't have the LLC, if it's just a sole proprietorship, you've just been running it as a side hustle or as a business, they can then come after you for your savings, your house, your car, and everything else. All of that is assets of the business that they can come after. So before you even get started with patents or trademarks or copyrights, I'd implore everybody to get an LLC. It's not very expensive. They're fairly easy to do. We do them for $99. Even if you don't do us, use LegalZoom, use somebody to do the LLC, because at least that way, if worse comes to worse, if you get sued or you have to file bankruptcy or anything else, you're not personally on the hook, which can be devastating for your finances, and something that I would always make sure to start there.
So I just took note. So we're going to need to come together to create an LLC for this new service I came up with, where we serve people papers via podcast. So we're going to need to. I'm not going to Google that. I'm just going to assume no one's done it. I'm going to be like most people that walk through your door, and let's just get that rolling. If you could work on that while we continue the rest of the interview, that would be great.
I'm sure I can have it done by the end of this interview. No problem.
Oh, sure. Unreasonable expectations. What would a client be if I wasn't having that? So
exactly.
On that note, as far as, hey, the LLC, good place to start. What's the most common mistake? Now obviously you have your own law firm practice. So in that essence, you are an entrepreneur, but you've been an entrepreneur even before that. So as you've kind of alternated chairs, if you will, from being being an entrepreneur to, yes, still being an entrepreneur, but helping other entrepreneurs. What's the most common mistake that you see, that people who come through your door that you experience or have to deal with the most?
Yeah. LLC is one. We've already hit on that. Beyond that, it kind of depends on the business. So I'll answer the question with a couple different answers depending on really setting the stage, and I do intellectual property, and so I that's probably where I'll answer the question. But setting the stage, patents are for inventions. You create something, you make something. That's what a patent covers. Trademarks are for brands, and so if you're creating the next big brand, that's where you're going to trademark. Copyrights are more for creative. So if you think of a book or an art, or a painting or a movie or something of that nature, that's creative nature. So a little bit the answer depends on what type of company I'm talking with. So if I'm talking with a brand company, and usually they fall into either a brand or a product company, right? You're either doing service and you're providing a service to someone, you're doing something awesome, or you're creating the next best iPhone or widget or whatever that might be. And so you're more of a product company. So if I answer the question first as branding, the worst is, or the worst mistake and the one that's common is that people don't protect their brand soon enough. And the reason it being is that they start out as a mom and pop shop or a side hustle or just something that's fun on the side. And lo and behold, it starts to grow. And so it becomes a business, and they put a lot of time, money, and effort towards branding. They build a brand, people are starting to know who they are, recognize it. And then year or two or three down the road after they started their business saying, well, we've got a brand and a reputation. We better get this protected. And then they'll come in my office and they'll say, hey, we want to trademark that. And so, oh, definitely happy to help, and definitely, something we can do. And then we'll do a search. We'll go out and see what other brands are out there, what other people have been using it. And they'll find out that, lo and behold, somebody's been using this brand for several years before them. And now they're stuck because they've invested a lot of time and effort, only to now either have to look at getting a license or rebranding, which can both be expensive, or figuring out how to get around it or anything else, all of which are less or are going to be expensive, much more difficult after you've been doing it for several years than you do the front.
And I think also like a really big blow, right? I mean, to your point, if you start off and you have that entity and you're really proud of it. I mean, I will speak to, even having your logo made and then going so far as turning it into an LLC, getting trademark, all those things. Like it starts to feel like, oh, this shit's real. It it almost makes you feel good. Yeah, you gotta pay for it. And is it cheap? Not necessarily. It's not crazy expensive, but I would never define it as cheap, right?
Yeah. I don't know if anybody's ever going to say lawyers are cheap.
No.
If you are working with a lawyer that you're calling them cheap, you probably want to get a new lawyer because it's not a good one.
I would agree. Absolutely. But I think that, you feel good about it, but yeah, I think there would be that's an incredibly crushing blow to find out that this thing that you have poured your time, your energy, your money, your enthusiasm, your everything into 5 years down the road, as opposed to 2 years or even 1 year, you got a lot more invested 5 years down than you do 1 year or 2 years.
Yeah, and one is you get really invested. I mean, now once you put in a whole bunch of time and effort, you have that logo. It's come locked into your mind. So you have a lot of emotional baggage just invested in that you don't want to rebrand because it's your baby. I mean, as much as you are starting a business, it feels like another member of the child because you're spending as much time on your business or more than you are with your wife and the kids for a long time. And so you become very emotionally attached. So just the emotional energy of saying, we have to rebrand, we have to start over. Not to mention that if you have built a successful brand, all your customers, all your clients, everybody knows you by that brand, and you're having to start over from scratch. It can be a very demoralizing and expensive thing, and sometimes one that you can't even recover from. So, and yet it's easy on the front end. If you do it on the front end, you get a trademark, you do your homework, you get the strategy in place, all of that can be avoided. So that's one that's a really big ouch if you're several months or years down the road that's easily avoidable on the front end.
I mean, think about all the other costs related to having to do that, to pivot if you have to change, right? The branding will have to change, conceivably the name, then all the marketing around it that you've done.
Website, SEO,
marketing. Oh my God, yes. If you're invested into SEO, it's like, oh my God, like you've flushed a lot of money down the toilet. Now, there's definitely strategies. As someone, I do a lot of SEO. If you're changing those names, there are things. But listen, there's no quick fix to make. Oh, all of our gains, just turn it right over to the new company name. Like, it doesn't work like that. It's gonna be an incredibly costly, and like I said, probably just a real disappointing expense for you if you don't go through and do that. So,
Yep.
so you have, like I mentioned, you were an entrepreneur for not for your legal group, right? And now
Sure.
you own your own legal firm, right? We were talking recently about some of the marketing efforts you employ for your
Hmm.
current business. Um, can you talk a little bit about what's working, or some strategies you'd even recommend, or maybe even what you're struggling with?
Yeah, so all of the above. I don't know that marketing ever crack. If you can just crack the nut and have the perfect marketing plan, I will pay you whatever it
Yeah.
costs, because it always seems like even when I figure things out, it's evolving, it's changing. We're trying new things all the time. One of the things that, and I think I talked about it with you, and if not, then it'll be a new surprise. That I'm a big proponent of LinkedIn. So we've tried a few of the different socials. When you talk law firm specific, Facebook, it's just not, doesn't seem to be the right crowd. Instagram's not, Pinterest is not, really Twitter isn't it. I mean, not that they can't have some effect, but it's really just not the right crowd. But LinkedIn is a great one where business founders, co-founders, business people are at, and they're at there on the platform for business related things. So one of the things that is as simple as it is and as easy as it is that we found that works is there's a lot of people that are just asking their network on LinkedIn for recommendations for X, Y, or Z. And in my case, for help with patents or trademarks. And how many times, I'll spend 5 or 10 minutes a day, simple amount of time, just going through and seeing who's for that day has asked for recommendations for patents or trademarks or for business or LLCs. And it's shocking how many of those go unanswered, and how it's a very easy or low hanging fruit to do that. And there's that for a lot of other businesses. It's the same way. There are people that are asking for, product development, manufacturing, SEO, marketing. Does anybody know a good, plumber, any of those? And yet, if you just spend those few minutes, that's one that's free. It's an inexpensive way to find those people, and yet it's one that they're already high intent. They're already wanting those services. They're already looking to pay for it, and so that's one that's an easy one that we found that works pretty well.
And it works really well from a B2B standpoint. That's where a lot of my B2B clients, where I push them towards. To your point, Facebook, it's not that it's an impossible ask by any means, or even to all the other platforms. Listen, can you make headway on those? Absolutely. But to your point,
Hmm.
like LinkedIn, LinkedIn is where you go for business content. Let's just put it like that. And I love
Yep.
LinkedIn, actually. Like, it's one of my favorite and top platforms. I'm going to throw out something here. Now I don't have enough of an educated take on it quite yet, because I literally, like last night, just got an invite. Have you heard of Clubhouse?
I've heard of it, and I find it interesting. My problem is I have an Android phone, so I don't have an Apple phone, and they're only on
Oh,
Apple.
whammo. All right.
So,
Well, when they expand to Android, you hit me up, because when they do that, it may not become invite only. It's very interesting. I have not had
mm,
enough time to really spend. Again, I got it last night. Been real. It's definitely something, I think, very much like Twitter,
mm,
that you do have to invest the time in to get the benefit out of. Facebook, if you have a brand page, you can post there and that kind of thing.
mm,
But where people need to really be thinking about social media. I mean, it's interesting enough where it started and it's
mm,
kind of come back around. It's in the
mm-hmm.
communities. Like, to your point about people asking about stuff, like I'm in a
Yep.
group, a bunch of groups, right? Facebook's really pushing groups too. Right. So it's,
Yep.
people all the time ask in those little groups, hey, can anyone recommend this, or this? And to your point, like, that's opportunity where you can obviously raise your own hand, but also
Yep.
help out your fellow business owners too. Hey, yeah, I know someone. I can, let me over here, point them over here. So communities is really strong from a social media perspective. And it's kind of been the way that these platforms, and especially Facebook, have kind of held brands at arm's length. That's the
Mm,
problem, is people bitched and moaned so much about there was so much branding and advertising on Facebook that, like, it feels like when you're a brand page on Facebook now, you're just in, like, you're you're at like the kids table. Like, you're not talking to anyone. right? It just seems like a lonely experience, which is why I quit that part of Facebook. I'm like, I'm not doing like I don't think about it. I'll post there, but it's not anything I put my calories towards, you know?
Yeah, I think that I like your point because I think it feels like that's where things have circled back to. Originally, it started as community, then it kind of became a platform where everybody put everything, and then it's like, well, there's too much here, and I don't really use it, or it's addicting, and I use it for wasting a whole bunch of time. So really, I'm going to come back to the community, and that's where I think and I would love to get on. Clubhouse. I don't have the phone, the right type of phone, which makes me sad. But it's one where it's a cool idea in the sense that you've got a lot of really good content providers. You've had some that are very well known and you can go on and learn a lot. And it's one where you get direct access to them, and you are part of that community. Whereas, with the Facebook or even with LinkedIn, but take most of the platforms, there isn't that community feel, and they're trying to bring it back. And I think they're trying to make that focus because you think about when people are looking for business, whether it's anything, they'd much rather have a recommendation, or even just somebody that's reaching out to them
100%.
than they would just having to Google it or to look at the yellow pages or however you find it, because then you're just going off of whatever Google ranks them the best, and you don't know if they're good or not.
This is a huge part of an actual product that I developed and sell as part of Tricycle Creative called Show and Tell Video, and it allows people to very easily send video testimonial requests. So you don't need to know special applications. You can do it with an Android or an iOS. You don't need to download anything. You send it. That uses your camera, whether it's your webcam or your phone cam, because testimonials are incredibly powerful. Weirdly enough, even if they're testimonials from people you don't even necessarily know, just the fact that some human is saying, hey, check these guys out. And if you get a couple more of those humans, or if you get it on video where you get to really experience it hearing from that human being, that's incredibly valuable. I'll tell you one other place where I've had a lot of success recently. And it's Reddit, right? I mean, Reddit, particularly for my YouTube channel. So like, I would still consider myself, and still by all accounts, a small YouTuber. And there's a lot of small YouTube subreddits or communities in Reddit. And it's just that they're communities. They embrace the community aspect. There's one I'm a member of, and the rules are, before you post, you have to go in and provide feedback or critique or watch someone's video, and give them some positive feedback or things like that. And I've really enjoyed doing that aspect. And I've had so many people who then will watch my videos, chime in, give me advice or say, hey, I love this video. Thanks so much. And then they end up subscribing to my channel. So communities, this is not necessarily new, but I do think it's not a place where a lot of people think when they think social media.
And I think that I like kind of you almost touched on is it's not one where you're always having to get the most views or view count or the most likes or anything else, because, too often it's tempting. Well, I put out a video and it only got 20 views or even 50 views or 100 views, or got 1 or 2 likes and engagement. One of the interesting things that, whether it's podcasting and videos, is it starts to establish your authority, right? Which is what you're always trying to do. And people see that you do a video, you can convince someone that you are whether or not you're an expert, video helps you convince them you are an expert. If you were to start a cooking show and you were to just take 7 videos and do them in order and show people how to cook, people will think you know how to cook, even if you don't. And it's because it is one way to establish a bit more of that authority, that personal feel. And it kicks off the relationship a whole lot better than just a normal blog post or just a Google ranking. Not that those aren't important to a business and they don't help, but I think I love video. So you're preaching the choir that I think that's one where it's where things are headed. It's one where it's at. And I'm a big disciple. One of the other things we didn't hit on is I love, for all of our marketing efforts, a service that's called BombBomb. And there's a few others that are out there. But BombBomb basically allows you to embed a gift into an email, and then they will be able to click on it, and it takes them and they can watch a video. So it's really a way to embed video into your emails so that you can have that bring back a bit of the personal touch that often doesn't get into email. So that's another, I think, an efficiency
I
tool.
love that. So let's talk. So that brings me very nicely to another question I was going to ask you, and it was about investment. And when I say that, I don't mean, hey, you got a stock, you got a hot stock tip, other than this really hot startup that serves people legal forms through podcasts. That's hot. You're going to want to invest in that when it comes out. Just
That's
stay
right.
tuned to future episodes of Tripod. Oh, let me also just point before I go on. I will put links to any of these respectable platforms, respective platforms, not respectable, respective platforms. They may not be respectable. They may not, they may not be respectable on the show notes, tripodpodcast.com. So be sure to check that out. Okay. So my investment question.
Mm,
What is the most worthwhile investment you've made? Now, when I say investment, I mean, that could be money. That's what everyone's
mm,
made, but it could also be time or
mm.
energy or some other resource. What's been something that's been incredibly valuable for your business?
Yeah, one of the ones, and it's HubSpot CRM, but it has more than just, I would say we don't just use it for a conventional CRM, but both on the money side and also a ton of time is we've looked at is how to do automation, and not automation, the crappy one where you or call the phone and it makes you go through a dialing tree of 20 different times. And by the end, you're just frustrated and hang up because it's not worth it. But more of, we looked and said, what is our intake process? So we put in a whole bunch of effort, and I think a lot of companies do, on finding the individual, right? You do the Google AdWords, you do all the advertising, and they come to you, and then more often than not, you let them drop. You don't take care of them. You don't walk them through the process. And so one of the things that I focus a ton on, and then I have some employees that do it as well, is how we walk them through the process. So we took HubSpot and we said, okay, once we originally chat with them, we have a form that we fill out that tells us, that we capture some of the information, when to follow up, how high of intent they are. Then they go through the system and it will give them periodic follow-ups. And it also gives me a reminder, say, hey, we followed up a few times. We haven't heard from them. You may want to do a personal touch and reach out to them, give them a call or do something of that nature. And so we'll do it. And then we take it, that's how we started out. And then we started to say, what are the ways that we want to talk or contact people? Email is an easy one, but email is so overused that people are starting to tune out. So we said, how do we integrate texting? And texting, I think, is a great one that people aren't overwhelmed, at least not yet. I'm sure it'll get
Texting
there.
has definitely seen a spike in the last year, and but
Mm,
you do, and to your point, email is used a lot, still very, like, from an open rate, still very successful, a lot better
mm,
than social. And text,
yep.
however, is even that much better. Like, open rate on text is
Mm.
is like, I think, in the 90th percentile.
Yeah, and people respond, and a lot of people. Interesting. We didn't just bombard. We don't just ask for people's phone number and just start, bombarding them with everything. We say, what are the ways that you would like us to connect up with you? We have ringless voicemail, which is, voicemails that just go automatically to your, or it doesn't call you, but just goes to your voicemail. But hey, if that's an easy way, let us know, and we'll do that. Texting is another way, or if you just want to email, and we look and say, where are they at? And then how can we reach out to them so we can automate the follow-ups and automate the engagement where we can, and then keep the time that is for personal engagement that isn't good for automation, that they do need that personal touch and interaction. Then we do that with bombs or phone calls or other things. So we looked and said, where's our best investment? Let's offload all of the engagement we don't need to do personally, but they still need to be contacted. And then let's focus on where we do need to engage them and talk with them. And between that mixture, that's been one of the best ways that we've been able to rise above in an industry that is typically absolutely horrible for customer service. I mean, to give you one statistic, and then I'll give you a pause. Legal industry, normal time, if you reach out to an attorney, and whether it's they're your attorney that you hired, or you want to hire them, or you're trying to find them out, or 70% of the time, attorneys, if you're trying to find an attorney, they never respond back to you. So they blow off your call, they don't respond to your email, you never hear back from them. Of the ones that 30% that do respond back, usually about 80 to 90%, it takes them 3 to 5 days to respond back to anytime you try and engage. So that means if you get a response, which most of the time you won't, it takes 3 to 5 days for them to respond to an email, phone call, text, anything. That's incredibly infuriating. That's a long time to ask people that are trying to give you money or trying to get help to do this. That's why when we looked at it, says, how can we reduce that? Let's automate where we can, where it doesn't make sense, and then we can have the time to actually focus. And so that's kind of where we've had our biggest investment.
No, and I think it sounds like, and you tell me if this is an accurate assessment. It sounds like the best investment is finding ways that you can automate in a smart way your I'd say your internal and external communications, right?
Yep.
And for those of you out there that are wondering how to do this, Devin had mentioned HubSpot. HubSpot offers a suite of tools that are certainly
Mm.
available to you. Another one that kind of a tool or a category of tool is what's called a CRM. So a customer
Mhm.
relationship management platform. And there are many of them out there. You can do a search. Many of them have free trials. You can see, and some of those either have their own email platform in them or they integrate with an existing email platform. I'm not saying that it's always like super easy. Sometimes you need to have these systems talk to each other, or sometimes they're all under one umbrella, but you need to get the pieces to talk to each other. But to Devin's point, once you get through that, right,
Mm.
there's going to be an initial period where you have to do a lot of building. But once you get that thing in place, I mean, that's where it can take over, and you can start to put your energy and focus, as I think Devin, you so brilliantly said, in those areas that do require your
Mm.
personal touch, your attention. I was like, your calories, right? Versus okay, wait, who I got to email right now? Like, you can turn that part of your brain off and focus on the other stuff.
Yeah, I love it. So, give you an example. I get emails and it's internal emails that it generates all the time of, "Hey, it's been 3 or 5 days since you've heard from this person. You should reach out." And I set that up in the system, so it's the system telling me itself. But it's one where I can forget until if they move through and they're moving along, I don't need to worry about it. And then on the other hand, I set it up that it tells me when I need to reach out to them. It was a ton of work on the front end, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But once you get it in place, it's to your point, it starts to get that momentum to where you don't have to be thinking about when was the last time I talked with this person, or when was the last time, because you'll have internal triggers set up that let you know it's been too long since you've talked with them, or they haven't responded. Or in the case of patents and trademarks, we'll say, "Hey, we sent this out for approval. They haven't approved it. You may want to check in and see why they haven't approved it, what questions they have, and make sure that they're not kind of lost out in the weeds."
Particularly for trademarks, because those have a real long time period
Mm.
of review, as I'm sure patents do too. I mean, I've
Patents are even
I was going to say,
trademarks.
I've only gone through and worked through the trademark, but I can only imagine the patent's even worse than the trademark process. Well, speaking of investments, let's take a quick break and hear from our sponsor. It probably comes as no surprise to you that Instagram is the favorite social media platform among creative business owners. Instagram also continues to find new and interesting ways for small businesses to generate revenue, promote their products, their service, their expertise. But Instagram does have a major limitation: external links. They won't work in your captions, and you can only use them in stories if you have a large follower count. Sure, they give you link in bio, but that's just one link. Problem solved with Solo.to. Solo.to is one bio link for everything. When you create a Solo.to account, you can showcase tons of links for your business. And if you're a creator like me, you can even embed music, videos, and podcasts right there on Instagram from your favorite platforms. Want to see Solo.to in action? Head on over to Tricycle Creative's Instagram account @HelloTricycle and click the link in our bio. Solo.to offers a free plan to get you started, and you can upgrade for as little as $1 a month. Use the referral link in this episode's description and in the show notes, and you can save 10% off any upgrade package within 48 hours of signing up. Solo.to. It's one bio link for everything. All right, guys, welcome back. I am here with Devin Miller, and man, I mean, I've learned a lot. This is why I do a podcast. I don't care if no one listens. It's like, this is just a great experience for me to sit down with other business owners, people with just really great expertise and even life experience, which you have some life experience I want to get into, but not quite yet. Because I have a very unique ask that I don't think I have ever. No, I know I have never, and I don't think I will ever be able to ask again. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that very weird, unique ask that I have of Devin. But before that, I do have something. I didn't prep you for this, just so you know. You weren't prepared for this.
All right.
I have this, but I just bought this. And it's called the Icebreaker Starter Pack. It's really great. It's a bunch of cards. So if anyone at home wants to buy them, they can. I don't know. It's not really so much a party game. It's more of, I think they sell it as like, hey, bring these to networking, but it's in a giant box. I don't know who has pockets that big. Well, anyways, there are 6 categories. What I'm gonna read out these categories to you, and I want you to pick one, and then I'm gonna pick a card completely at random. I'm gonna ask you the question. This is where we might get to know each other real good. I don't know, depending on. Okay, the first category is life.
All right.
Second category is random. Third category is deep. I'm gonna work those. Though I don't want anyone crying on the podcast, so they do go deep. I'm not gonna. Okay.
Right.
Fourth is experiences.
Hmm.
Fifth is if you could. And then we have would you rather.
All right, I'll go with the first one. We'll go with life. That one sounded
You have a very interesting life.
I believe you scared me a little bit with deep, so I don't know that I'm
scared of deep. I'm not gonna lie, I'm scared of deep. I don't blame you at all. Like it is. I've read some of them, and I'm like, if I ask someone this question on this podcast, it's gonna be like an Oprah moment or something. So
I don't know that I'm that in touch with my feelings and I can go. Let's go.
Oh, I'm going to get it out of you. If you don't think I'm like Oprah, how dare you? No. Okay, here we go. This is a good one. You've led, if I may say so, you've led a very interesting life. So I'm very curious this answer. Okay, here we go. Here's the question. When you were younger, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, that one's a good one. I'll give 2 answers. When I was really young and it was very naive, I wanted to be an NFL football player because that's what all kids that play Little League football, you're saying, oh, I want to be an NFL football player. And then,
Now, in that dream, did you want to like specifically play for a team? Like, did you have a team in mind that you wanted to play for? Or was it just about, I want to get to the NFL?
I just wanted to get to the NFL. Right. If it was any team, it was great. I think I liked the 40 at the time 49ers just because they had Steve Young that went to BYU, and I liked BYU. So that was the extent of the thought. Now, as I got slightly older, when I got into actually realizing, okay, I'm not going to be an NFL football player. I'm not even close to that talented. I can't run that fast. I can't hit that hard. There is no chance. Then it was really – I always liked, and it's kind of what I'm doing now, but I didn't know what it meant. It was, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to be a business owner. I wanted to do a startup. And this was before really, you didn't have Shark Tank back then. You didn't have all of the cool TV shows that glamorize it. But I'm like, it'd just be really cool. I'm going to make, I don't know what it is, but I'm going to make something really cool and have my own business.
Did you have were your parents entrepreneurs? Like, did they own their own business or were you exposed to that?
My dad always had side hustles, and so he had a business. He was part of what I would say is a startup. So he didn't necessarily start it first person, but he was within the top 5 people that had started it. And so he kind of always had that entrepreneurial bent. He always had projects that they were doing. So it was one where I don't know that he was just, hey, he started his own business, and I could say that's what I wanted to do. But there was enough there that I thought, oh, that would be cool and that'd be interesting. My mom, she stayed at home. She raised us. She was a great example. So it wasn't necessarily, I didn't get it from there, not at all slighting her, but it was kind of one where I saw snippets and pieces. And then I think it was just somewhat inherent. I just thought it would be cool to create something and do your own thing in your own business. So
you saw those, I mentioned it earlier, like you saw those like DNA strands, if you will, that make up an entrepreneur, right? The hustle, the enthusiasm, and the excitement from it. Yeah. The excitement. My dad was the same thing. He did start a business. I think I was really young when he had his business. And then he went to work in the medical field for a long time. And, I think I always was like, I want to be, I didn't know, kind of like you, I didn't know exactly. And I wouldn't even say I even had as fine a point on it that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I knew that I wanted to. I always got this feeling like, not just feeling, but my dad helped people. He was involved in medical fundraising. And he was and is to this day, like, they'd have all these corporate events. Like he's a good schmoozer, and I think that's what he always used to tell me, like what he did. He's like, oh, I'm a corporate schmoozer,
And I'm horrible at that. I'm not a corporate
Yeah,
sleuth
like,
at
I
all.
mean,
But I'm kind of this. I mean, what is now taking that one step further, even though it wasn't in the icebreaker question, what has been really fun is I've had now the opportunity to do some of the startups I've been in with my dad. So kind of come full circle that I got to kind of watch him have side hustles, do or work on projects, be part of his small business. And now with some of the businesses I've started and been involved with, he's been right there alongside of me, helping me develop, helping me to do the product. And it's been really fun. So just as a complete side note, but it's fun how things come full circle.
well, your side note brings me to my most interesting question I've ever had for anyone. So you work with your dad on some of those businesses and projects and things like that. So you spent time in China, right?
I did. Taiwan. I spent most of my time in Taiwan, which depending on who you ask, they define it as China.
Fair point. Fair point. Was your dad involved in any of those types of projects or no?
So really, not in your question. So the China was, or really Taiwan, where I learned Chinese. I did that for a religious mission for my church.
Wow,
so
okay.
I did an undergraduate for a year. I went off and did 2 years, and I lived in Taiwan, learned the language, did service for my church, and then came back. So he served his own. He's part of the same religion. So he served a mission in Japan when he was younger. So I had that example. But really, now I'll answer the question you didn't ask, which where we really started. The first project it was really my first real startup was when I was doing my law degree and MBA degree at the same time, which is
Good
I was studying both of those.
You're a glutton for
and
punishment.
Let me not the half of it. I was working 20 hours as a law clerk. I was doing 2 degrees. And then on the side, I saw, I think it was a flyer that says, you can enter into a business competition. I only got my wife, one kid, a second one on the way, 20 hours doing 2 degrees. Why not enter a business competition?
What in the hell? Your wife must be an incredibly patient person.
She is an absolute saint. So I said, I'll do a competition. So the first year we entered and we didn't go anywhere. But the second one, we were trying to come up with an idea. This was in the days was the days before wearables. But I was into marathons. I said, wouldn't it be cool if you could monitor your hydration level when you're working out or when you're
with
running
a straw, with a straw that you would drink from?
Well, almost only with the wearable, which was at the time before Fitbit, almost like a straw, but a lot better. So I remember came up with the idea and we were trying to figure out, I'm like, well, I know I had an electrical engineering, but I didn't have medical background or anything else. So I called up my dad and I said, so I got this idea for a business competition, I want to monitor hydration. Any idea of how we could actually do that? So I came back over Christmas break. While I was back, I was in Cleveland at the time. He was in Utah, but I came back with family over Christmas break and we actually prototyped it up, built the concept, which evolved into a business. But that was really the first time that I'd done a startup and he was right there with me, helping me build it over Christmas break.
That's awesome. So here's what I want to ask. Can you say thanks for listening to Tripod in Mandarin?
谢谢你听 Tripod.
There it is, everyone. I hope he actually said what I asked him to and not say, this is the crappiest podcast in the world and it's called Tripod. I don't know. So if any of you out there speak Mandarin and can confirm, this is like I'm fearful it's like getting a Chinese character tattoo, and not knowing what I have on my body.
This is when people get it. They're like, oh, this is I'm like, that's such a stupid tattoo. Like, don't get it removed. Get a real one. Like, you don't know that's not what it means.
It's just, I gotta say, even as tattoos go, I do feel like it's really bold getting a language you don't understand or speak put on your body permanently. I mean, it does take cojones to do that.
It does. I agree. So make sure, just Google it, do something. Make sure just as a complete aside, make sure what you get tattooed. Because when I see those, I'm like, I am definitive. I know that's not what you think it means.
All right, so we're going to wrap the show up, and I want to give you, Devin, please tell everyone where they can find you, plug away, anything that you want to promote. Fire away, my friend.
All right, so I'll give people a couple ways to reach out to me. So one, if you just want to find out more about the law firm, more about what we do, what our prices are, everything of that nature, learn more about patents and trademarks. If you can't fall asleep at night and you want an easy reading material to get you to sleep, you can go to lawwithmiller.com, all one word, and that just takes us to our general website. Now, if you have questions about patents, trademarks, business, and other things, we offer free strategy meetings where we'll sit down with you, take a few minutes, go through your questions, all free of charge. And you can just go to strategymeeting.com. You can grab it, links right to my calendar. You can grab some time, and I'm happy to chat with about any questions you have. So those are the two easiest ways. Lawwithmiller.com if you just want to find out more. Strategymeeting.com if you want to actually reach out and talk with me.
I've had a blast talking with you, which, to be fair, like I said in the beginning of the show, I don't know if I can say that from talking to many lawyers. Those aren't always the most fun conversations. So thank you so much.
Most of them are not fun conversations, and I've had a fun time chatting as well.
Thanks for listening to Tripod. Be sure to subscribe and rate the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Stitcher, or wherever you listen. For show notes and past episodes, go to tripodpodcast.com. Connect with Tricycle Creative on social media at Hello Tricycle and learn more about how we can help you with your marketing at tricycle-creative.com.